Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 310. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this week, Gayle from Communities Digital News. What's going on, Gayle?
Hey, good evening, everybody. It's a big fight weekend, which means it's a big night of boxing talk on the Pound for Pound.
Indeed. A lot of fights that went down this weekend, a lot of boxing news, and a lot of fights to preview for this coming weekend. Scheduled to have some more guests. Daniel from The Inscriber is hopefully a regular fan of the show. Lisa will join us later on in the show. But because, quite frankly, Gayle is a little bit pressed for time, A. B, been starting the live show really late. My apologies for that. So I want to get things going relatively on time. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report is a live YouTube show, podcast, and blog discussing all things boxing. And the motto is, when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, we will talk about it. For those who are looking for information, where to find us all over social media, where to find us all over podcast platforms, the blog page is the place to go to. For the time being, p4pboxreport.wordpress.com is the link. You check the top right of the blog page. You'll find links to where to find us all over our pages on YouTube and Twitter, where to find the podcast all over platforms like Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, Mixcloud, and any and everywhere in between. We're just about on every platform right now. Where you can donate, we got a Cash Me and PayPal donation link. Let donation be the best nation. I don't care if it's $1, $2, $5, $10. If you have some extra change, could you please shoot Pound for Pound Box Reporters a few coins? That will help the overall production of the show behind the scenes. And last but certainly not least, I am an online coach for Beachbody. Right now, we just finished up the November Let's Build Together November Group Fitness Challenge. Getting ready to start a new challenge at the beginning of the year, kind of a New Year's resolution for folks who want to get themselves in shape. If you're interested in getting into shape or improving your fitness, just check out Beachbody On Demand. They got tons of programs that will fit all of your needs and all criterias, whether it's weightlifting, whether it's yoga, whether it's cardio, any and everything in between. Or if you want to take advantage of the two-week trial, Beachbody On Demand has a free 2-week trial that runs throughout the year. So if you want to get some 2 weeks of free workouts to close out the year, or if you want to get two free weeks of workouts to start your 2021, just check out my online fitness coaching page on Pound for Pound Box Report, or hit me up on Pound for Pound Box Report Twitter at P4P Box Report, or my personal Twitter at BrotherJR76. And I see Lisa is getting ready to join us. She's joining us now. What's going on, Lisa?
Nothing. Sorry, my best friend is sick, and I forgot I had ordered her some juices because some of my other friends they have a juicing business, so I had to run down the street and give her these juices.
No problem. I send my regards and
we're live.
To your friend, and hope she gets well.
Oh, okay, we live already. Oh God.
Oh yeah.
My apologies.
No problem. Yes, we are live. And like I said, hopefully, for those who are new to the show, this is Lisa, a longtime fan and friend of Pound for Pound Box Report. As I said a few minutes ago, we hope to have Daniel from The Inscriber joining us in a bit. Let's get things going.
Hi, Gayle.
I'm here. Let's roll.
Let's start over in the UK, London to be specific. The big fight of the week. Anthony Joshua making his long-awaited return to the ring. A year after his rematch win over Andy Ruiz to recapture the unified WBA, WBO, IBF heavyweight straps. Fought IBF mandatory challenger Kubrat Pulev over in London. Joshua, dominant performance, really from beginning to end. First 2 rounds, he got off to a little bit of a slow start. He was a little bit careful. Hurt Pulev badly in the third, had knocked him down, made Pulev turn his back. He had his way throughout the middle rounds. In the end, in my opinion, he kind of took his foot off the gas a little bit. in the eighth round after a dominant seventh round, but he turned it back on in the ninth. Uppercuts galore to finish the fight. And again, Joshua all the way, AJ with the ninth round stoppage. I would argue it's possibly the best uh, performance of his career, or best title defense of his career, certainly. I know people will look at the Klitschko bout, but he was young and in the Klitschko bout, and he got knocked down and hurt badly in that fight. In this one, he dominated from jump. I'll go to you, Gail. Um, your your assessment of what went down. How did you think Joshua looked coming back from a year layoff? How would you rate this particular fight in comparison to all his other performances?
It was a great performance. It shows his journey blending two styles of fighting, which is informed by the loss he took to Andy Ruiz and some of the other flaws that no doubt have been pointed out to him along the way. He has transformed himself at a relatively late stage of his career. I mean, after becoming a heavyweight champion, mind you, from a seek and destroy, pounded out kind of guy to, dare we say, a version in 2020, a little more elegant version with some more tools of a Vladimir Klitschko, a little more studied, a little more cautious. And he's still working on it. Clearly, he's still working on it. You know, the skill set hasn't quite mixed up in the blender yet. You know, there's still definite areas where it's one taste versus the other. So depending on what you admire, what you like, what you appreciate, some of you are going to be the glass half full of, well, you know, it looks pretty good. He's getting there. He's going to get there if he keeps working on it like he has been. And then there's the glass half empty folks that say, well, yeah, that's all great, but damn, it's boring when he's just tactically fighting. And in between the fourth and the ninth rounds, things definitely slowed down. If you looked at the punch stats, there were rounds where Joshua barely landed a punch at all. There was clearly also criticism that after he seriously hurt Pulev in the third round, but couldn't get him out of there, that he stepped off the gas for a few rounds. You know, I don't hate that. I don't hate that for this fight, for this opponent, while he's still working on this transition of skill set. And once he has full command of both in his arsenal, it makes him very dangerous. It makes him far improved. And again, at this stage of his career, 8 years after winning an Olympic gold medal and coming to prominence, that's very impressive. Give the man credit for that. And he's been off for a year, like a lot of elite fighters. Give him credit for looking as fresh and as fit as he did. He's also very much changed his physique in the ring. But it is a work in progress, and he's doing it at the right time for the right reasons, because looming down the road is that boogeyman known as Tyson Fury. Now, we'll talk about, I'm sure, what's upcoming and whether we think he's got the skill set to beat Fury. Whether or not you come down on the side of yes, he does, no, he doesn't, he is certainly getting closer. And that's what his career in the ring right now is all about. So bravo to him. He did what he needed to do. And in the end, after letting Pulev off the hook and continue getting run around the ring for 4 or 5 more rounds, he took care of business. You know, come on. What more can you ask, folks?
In the end, overall thorough performance. But I go to you, Lisa, on this one. To Gail's earlier point about folks looking at Joshua in terms of half full, half empty. When I'll admit that I didn't watch the fight live because I had to work. I've seen most of it on tape delay, on delay, I should say. Now, a lot of people, when I was checking the live boxing Twitter while at the job, right? And even after the fight, a lot of folks were, to Gail's point, a little bit annoyed, maybe too strong a word, but I'll use it for this conversation. Annoyed that when Joshua had Pulev hurt badly in the third, that he couldn't finish him. Right? Others will look at it and say he showed patience, he showed maturity, that he didn't leave himself open to get caught, much in the same way he did against Andy Ruiz during the loss in June of last year, right? And when he finally sought the opportunity to finish, he did so. What side of the scale do you view Joshua and how he won against Pulev and his the manner in which he stopped Pulev just a couple days that after the fight?
Me, right?
Yeah, you, Lisa.
Um, um, especially Pulev. He's a character. I thought it was
Excuse
a
me,
good.
Lisa. Could you repeat your first part? We couldn't hear the first thing you said.
I said I watched the fight on Saturday live when it was going on, and I said I was actually it was a few strange parts in the fight. It was really weird. The third round, how Pulev turned his back, because I know some people was like, when you turn your back, that's when the fight should, it was just weird. It was strange. But Pulev is a little bit of a character. I see that. But I enjoyed the fight. I thought it was a good performance by Joshua. Joshua's a novice, so he's still growing and he's learning on the job, so to say, because he came into that he wasn't a natural boxer, like started, at a very young age. So I'm seeing the development with him and he's growing and he has the ability to adapt. And what I like about him is that he's not trying to say that he's the best all the time, or he's kind of quiet in his the way he do things. I see that he wants to learn, and his performance was really good. He's working on some things. He like you said, that glass half full or glass half empty. I try to look at it as a positive. I try to look at it as half full, because I noticed with Joshua Sin, I don't know, maybe it's because of the position he's at. People tend to be a little bit overly critical of him, and not to say that uh, fans are not overly critical of all fighters, but it seems like with him, nothing he does is ever good enough, if you know what I mean. So you'll have some people that will say this or that, but hey, it's hard when you're handsome and you got money, and most guys probably don't like him because their girls probably say, "Oh, he's cute." So it's crazy, it's funny, but I see some growth and development with him, but he's still a work in progress. But overall, I enjoyed the fight, and it was funny at the end how when they tapped gloves at the end, like they were boom pounding each other with the gloves. Him and Pulev. Pulev is actually kind of funny to me. I didn't know his character was like that. But all in all, I enjoyed the fight.
Let's move on to what's next, and I'm going right back to you, Lisa. Um, we know there have been discussions throughout the year that there's kind of an agreement in principle that Joshua and Fury agreed to a two fight series, I should say, next year. After the fight, Hearn and Joshua asked about the fight, and Hearn basically said, "Yeah, that's kind of in in a perfect world, that's the fight that we want." Aram took to Twitter moments after the fight and said, basically declared that we're on the road now to making a fight between the two in 2021. He's called it the biggest heavyweight fight since Ali Frazier won. Fury posted a video saying that yeah, he wants to fight. He wants to fight now. Eddie Hearn, an exclusive interview for Sky Sports, and I wrote about this today for Three Kings on threekingsboxing.com. Just go to threekingsboxing.com. Just check the folks out there. Check the folks behind Three Kings. 2K, aka Prodigy of Boxing, and the head man behind Three Kings, Bo, head of media relations. Fellow writers, Bakari, Jarrell, and myself, editor Red. I believe that's still the top story right now on threekingsboxing.com. Hearn today in an interview for Sky Sports said that he has talked to Arum in the days after the fight. They're trying to iron out some details. It is his hope, Hearn's hope, that they can fight. That Joshua and Fury can fight twice, with the first fight happening as early as May of next year. There are some mitigating circumstances, of course. Fury has the situation where he's in litigation with Deontay Wilder, who I think may have filed a suit for a third fight, right? And then Joshua, he took care of one mandatory obligation with Pulev, but he still has another one with the WBO, their mandatory challenger being Usyk. And after the fight, they post Juan Vacarcel, the head of the WBO, posted that, okay, congratulations to you, Joshua, but you have obligations to make a mandatory, and you have to abide by that. Simply put, your thoughts? How would you rate the possibility of this fight between Joshua and Fury happening in 2021 or by May, as Hearn not intimated, but disclosed to Sky Sports?
I don't see it, because I heard that that Usyk definitely wants his shot, his title shot, and they're enforcing it. The WBO, right? And I think Hearns and Arum are just talking. Yes, it's going to build the fight up, but then you still have on the other side Fury. He has to, he has to have that trilogy with Wilder. So I just don't see it. I just think they talking out of their backsides. That's just me personally. That's what I believe. Yes, it's to draw interest to the fight, but that's just my opinion.
I think we'll get the fight next year. I don't think we'll get the fight by May. I think there's a lot of moving parts to deal with, and they may, in fact, have to set fights for both participants prior. Usyk might be the one guy to hold out in principle versus taking a step aside check, which would be a very generous check and would need to be. But it's possible. Now, let's also remember Joe Joyce was calling out Usyk. Now, I find that a very interesting fight. And that's makeable as an alternative, potentially. Seems like Fury is raring to go. He called him out on Twitter within minutes, if not seconds, of the end of the fight.
Called him a Dasa, as usual.
The big Dasa, among other things. It was a bit of a profane tirade. It was classic Fury. Best of all, he was wearing one of his own branded ugly Christmas sweaters with himself on the sweater. And it says on the
year, Gayle. Ugly sweater season.
I'm telling you, and it even says, "You big Dosser." Available on Tyson Fury's website, should you be interested. Don't think you'll get it in time for Christmas from the UK, but you can pack it away for next year. I think the other issue is, come on, folks. I get it. The vaccine has arrived, but the rollout is going to take some time. And this fight absolutely demands a live gate. On another call today for the Friday card with Golovkin and Szeremeta, Hearn talked about the fact they barely got in under the wire with their 1,000 fans that were allowed in the SSE arena. And Britain's back in a shutdown for several weeks, completely. No audiences. I mean, if you watch Premier League soccer over the weekend, you saw audiences. That's off the table once again. We're going to go through these ups and downs for some months to come. I really think they're going to have to wait until well into the summer before herd immunity, critical mass is there, and before people lose, some of their concern and their fear about going out there for the first time. I'm not sure that everyone wants their very first big event outing to be with 90,000 other people. So I think that I think that the clock is going to have to tick a little bit. And the good news is there are some other interim options if it's necessary. But I feel confident will happen. The two parties are talking. It's the biggest money fight that can be made. I don't think American fans realize how big a star Anthony Joshua is in the UK. He is legitimately the LeBron James of Great Britain. And anything he does is going to maximize revenue. The only other option is doing it offshore in Saudi Arabia. And I think that would be an absolute shame for the devoted British fight fans. But that may be in play. So we'll see.
We are joined right now by Daniel, the Inscribing. Right now, we're talking Anthony Joshua, his win versus Kubrat Pulev, recapping that, as well as what could be in the future for AJ. Getting you into the discussion, Daniel, your quick recap of the fight, number one. Two, or more importantly, let's get you into the discussion, the topic we have in hand right now, in terms of AJ and a possible fight against Fury. As you mentioned, Gayle, England is basically back in lockdown. Shout out to the homie EJ Boxing Live. He told me about this weeks ago that they were going to be headed back into lockdown. Eddie Hearn mentioned during the Sky Sports interview that they are in tier 3 right now. No fans in attendance right now. It was just lucky they were just unfortunate the timeline in terms of Joshua and Pulev that there were fans there. That's no longer the case for future sporting events. Lisa mentioned that the impending mandatories with Joshua and Usyk and the back and forth between Fury and Wilder could stall the progress of this bout happening. Gayle mentioned that she sees the fight happening in 2021, but not just in May, as Hearn discussed with Sky. Your thoughts on the possibility of this fight happening next, Daniel?
All right, now, first things first on the actual fight itself. AJ looked really, really good in this fight. He looked fresh. He looked like he was on his P's and Q's, and he did what he was supposed to do against an opponent in Pulev at this stage of his career. Not gonna say that Pulev didn't show bravery. Like there was a good amount of time in that third round where I thought he probably would have been done for the count, but he persevered. He lasted until he got knocked out in the ninth, but you expected him, AJ and Pulev to look. Now, unfortunately, the difficult part begins because you have on one side, you have for AJ, you have the biggest fight in the UK, and it's been the biggest fight in the UK for about how many years now? About 4, maybe 5 years. It would be Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. The problem, unfortunately, right now is that also involves Eddie Hearn versus Frank Warren, and that's gonna cause a little bit of ruckus as far as what's gonna split gonna be, how's it gonna be? Like, because AJ has all the belts, but we know Tyson's gonna try to say, I'm the lineal champion, I'm the guy you actually beat. You just beat a guy after I beat him and all that mess. That could fall into it. And obviously, there's also the fact that Tyson Fury is probably going to spend a lot of time in court early on in 2021 because of Deontay Wilder. I personally don't see this fight happening in 2021. I could probably see it early 2022. It's going to be something where you need to have a lot of fans involved in. They're just now starting to roll with the vaccine on this. We don't know how the side effects are going to happen in the first doses compared to the next of them. Like we mentioned, that like UK had limited fans for a little bit, but now they're going back to full shutdown. There's parts of this country that probably will go back to full shutdown as well pretty soon. And then you have that going for it, and this is one of those fights where you need to have a crowd. So you need to make sure that everything is set up for you. And right now, the way things are looking, you're probably not going to see that. At least a full crowd in 2021. So I could definitely see that happening, which leaves open the avenue for mandatories. The Usyk situation is pretty interesting because if Usyk decides not to take step-aside money out of general principle, then the WBO will strip AJ the title, and then apparently then it's going to be Usyk versus Joseph Parker for the vacant title. But what happens if in the interim Junior Fa beats Joseph Parker? Do you have to find a new opponent? Does WBO just simply award Usyk the title? That's going to be an interesting thing to do, because if you wind up splitting the avenue, WBO, you have the same situation where there's 3 champions at heavyweight. And while one of them it's easier to deal with because Usyk is still talking to Eddie. For all we know, Usyk could just try to say, I'll make a tough fight Tyson Fury myself. To be skill versus skill. Meanwhile, you handle your WBA and other IBF mandatories, AJ. It's going to be interesting what they're going to see, but the crowds are going to play a factor into it. I personally do not. This is the type of fight where I know how much money is involved when it comes into taking it on to Saudi Arabia, but this is a fight that you cannot allow in Saudi Arabia for the Brits. This has to be in the UK for no other reason other than the fact that you're going to let somebody that is as vocal as Tyson Fury is when it comes to certain religious beliefs and one of the most predominantly Muslim countries in the world. So we'll leave it at that, but leave it there for 2022 when we can probably more than likely know we're going to have a lot of crowds.
I think the momentum is building to the point where this fight has to happen. It's going to get too big. There's no other choice. It's not an accident that during Shakur Stevenson's doing the ESPN card Saturday night that they made sure to not just show highlights of Joshua's win versus Usyk, but to mention Joshua, excuse me, multiple times throughout the broadcast, right? SportsCenter showed his highlights as well. So, and that's for a reason, because they low-key are doing their part to slowly but surely build up the fight. Aaron wouldn't do what he has done. Aaron talked all the mess about Joshua in the lead up during the fight that he's not this, he's not that. But this is the same Aaron that showed up immediately after the fight and said, let's try to make this happen because he knows what's up. He knows the money that's involved that can potentially be made. And in terms of mandatories, I think Usyk could be the biggest impediment. I think he could be more of an impediment than Wilder. You got to keep in mind that there was a target date to make Wilder Fury 3. Wilder, the one who messed around and let that date and didn't try to do anything until that date happened and let the date pass, put it that way. Usyk, I could see him fighting to get a title shot against Joshua, but remember the $5 million that Mike Tyson uh, gave Lennox Lewis in order to have the fight against Holyfield, the first Holyfield fight. I could see Usyk taking a similar step aside feat, right? Because it doesn't matter with him if he gets that big chunk of money, he's going to get the fight regardless, either the fight of a winner between Joshua and Fury, or if they decide to go along the fight with out the minus the WBO title, he gets that title anyway. So no matter where he goes, he's going to win, in my opinion. Will it happen in May? I don't know. I kind of doubt that if it happened in May, because towards Daniel's point, you need a crowd for this kind of event, because this is not just a boxing event. To Daniel's point about the popularity of Joshua in particular, and Fury too, but particular Joshua, because for U.S. fans who do not pay attention, Anthony Joshua is not just a fighter from England. He is a worldwide figure. If you doubt me, check his endorsements. And check what happens whenever he goes abroad. I mean, shoot, in 2016, he just won the title, right? And went to the Olympics in Rio. He got the following. He got a huge reception there. So he's a global figure. Floyd wouldn't come to see Joshua fight if he wasn't somebody. Just let that sink in. So the fight will happen, in my opinion. Will it happen in May? That's a bit iffy, but I think it will happen, if not late 2021, early 2022. It's going to get too big where there will be no other choice. It's too much. It will be too much money on the line, and all parties involved will be just, for lack of a better word, foolish not to make this fight. This is not a situation where Riddick Bowe and Lennox Lewis, where ego and stupidity, and both fighters is just ego and stupidity just did resulted in that fight being made and both of those guys being upset. This has to happen. It has to happen, and I think it ultimately will happen. I mentioned how Joshua was mentioned during this ESPN card. Let's go there right quick. I'm going back to you, Lisa. The headliner for that ESPN card was Shakur Stevenson fighting a guy by the name of Toka Kahn Clary. I covered the fight with Three Kings Boxing, and let's just keep it a buck, Lisa. That was nothing more than a glorified sparring session. Stevenson had his way. To me, he carried Toka Kahn Clary some rounds. At a certain point of the fight, Clary, he didn't even put up real resistance. He was just looking to go the distance. Stevenson took advantage by working on some things. It was just a case of Stevenson getting some good work in before his next big fight.
Yeah, I agree. Stevenson is a very talented young what is he? Well,
He's a junior
he did
lightweight
hold
now.
a title before, huh?
Yeah, he held a title at featherweight, but he's a junior lightweight now.
Right. He's very talented. And he's growing. You see how big he got us? When I was
Yeah,
watching
he's starting to gain some man muscle.
yeah, I didn't even know I was looking at the same kid. So it's like he's starting to come into his man strength now, and his face is filling out. He moves like just like a cat. Um, Very defensive, very those that left is beautiful to the body, and he's just very talented guy. But that guy, it was just a mismatch. I want to see him in there with the Berchelts and the Valdez, or even the winner of Valdez and him. I'm not sure if Jamel, what's his name? Jamel Hart. What is his name? I don't know if he'll fight him.
Jamel Herring.
Herring.
Herring and Frampton, when they finally fight, if COVID will let them, they become a mandatory. So we'll be seeing that.
Oh, okay, great. But I always wanted to see him fight like Berchelt or somebody. That would be a really good fight. But yeah, that I want to see him fight some better comp, even Loma. Who knows? Because Loma's been very quiet. So who knows when Loma come back? That would be a good fight, him and Loma.
Yeah, Loma's been very quiet, Gayle and Daniel, but Stevenson has been very loud in terms of a fight against Loma. Again, I wrote this for Three Kings. I wrote about this for ThreeKingsBoxing.com as well. You can go to Three Kings. I wrote about this for Three Kings Boxing. You go to ThreeKingsBoxing.com to check it out. In the pre-fight series of interviews with Boxing Media, and fight media in general, Stevenson about a fight against Lomachenko said that basically gave a warning to Loma that don't come his way, that he'll beat him worse than Teofimo Lopez did. Um, the fight itself, Gayle, you can comment of all you if you want. That was just home hum, like I said, that was a sparring session. Let's talk about the future here. Lisa mentioned of fighting the winner of Berchelt, who's set to. It's been rescheduled. His bout against Oscar Valdez. This fight is going to happen on the 20th of February right now, February 2021. She also mentioned Herring and Frampton. They're going to fight in 2021. Stevenson is the WBO mandatory contender at 130 pounds. So there are options there. Do you think that he will go the Herring route, the route of fighting Herring, the winner of Herring and Frampton, and then shoot for Berchelt? That's what he's talked about. Or do you see, because to Lisa's point about the fact that he's obviously a growing young man. Just look at his body now versus his body even when he won the featherweight title last year. He's a growing kid. He's fighting at 130 now, but I could see him moving up easily to 135 very, very soon because he's growing into that kind of physique. So if you were his manager, what route would you take him, Gayle? And then you can follow up, Daniel.
He asserts that he's making 130 just fine. He said it's not a problem, it's not a strain. I would keep him at 130 as long as they can, which means he could easily take a strap off the winner between Herring and Frampton, and I think he would. And he seems to really have Miguel Berchelt in his gun sights. Now, to me, that is by far the most ambitious fight. But the nice thing is, they're all top rank, so it's not going to be tough to make them, no matter how they all shake out. And then once he's taken a belt or two in his second weight division, he moves up to 135, and then he can take a belt in that division. And that's how you start doing it with a guy this young, with everything in front of him. And then you got some real interesting matchups. I know he is really interested in Tank Davis, but he's also said nice things about, and he's actually said what sound like very sincere compliments about Ryan Garcia. That's makeable. That's absolutely makeable. Oscar and Uncle Bob don't love playing together, but they do. They do. So there's a lot of options, but I think the team would need to sit down. It really depends on how protective Top Rank and manager Andre Ward want to be. It's Stevenson's job to be ambitious. Good for him. So far, he has walked the walk every time he's talked the talk, but it is his promoter and his manager's job to protect him. So there's a nice middle ground. And obviously all the prospective opponents get a say about how they're doing, how their health is, whether they're winning or not.
What say you, Daniel?
the easiest avenues when it comes for Shakur Stevenson is going to be the Herrick fight. It's probably the easiest fight they can make, and it's almost like an inevitability. Even if Frankton beats Herring, it'll still be a pretty easy fight for him to make. And then Berchelt seems to be the open avenue that you want to go to after that. Should he finish the fight with Valdez? After that, then it can become a little bit of fun because there's a fighter out there by the name of Jojo Diaz that has a belt. That would be able. You'd be more than willing to talk the smack that you need to talk to and make a fight. And since he's not with Al, it's a lot easier to make than if you were trying to do against Tank Davis. Because Tank Davis, I consider that a non-starter, considering the parties involved and who's actually in charge. So I would consider that a non-starter fight.
Taking the ring with him
But
right now.
those are pretty much the avenues. He's pretty open. It mainly depends on. Nope. Mm-hmm. And right now, probably no way that Floyd and Bob are going to do that type of business together unless Floyd gets a significant amount of money on the A side, which we know Bob was probably not going to want to do at this stage. So probably the easiest avenue, depending on how it's positioned, is probably going to be the Herrick fight. And it'll be smart. It'll get him a belt, and then it keeps him in the title picture where you want to talk unification.
I'm going to split Steve fights up because I know Gail's a little bit pressed for time, and I'm going to her with this next fight. If Stevenson and Clary was kind of a snoozer, the co-main event of the 10 p.m. ESPN card. That was a doozy of a fight between Masayoshi Nakatani and Felix Verdejo. Verdejo got off to a terrific start, dropping Nakatani twice, putting him down twice in rounds 1 and 4 with beautiful right hands. But you could see slowly but surely Nakatani, he kept on the pressure. He kept his he started to find his groove. And I don't know what happened to Verdejo. He just, one, he seemed to get a little bit tired. 2, the footwork started to lack. And just over time as the rounds progressed, Gail, Nakatani started to find a home with the right hand of his own. And he hurt Verdejo. I thought he got his attention in round 7. No, I don't think he got his attention. I know he got his attention. He hurt him in round 7 with the right hand. He kept up the pressure in round 8. Hurt him again, in my opinion. Kept him hurt throughout that round. And then in the 9th, put him down with a simple power jab. And Verdejo just came apart. Subsequent overhand right finish matters. Nakatani, in my opinion, and I said this on Twitter, and I think you saw it, Gail. He out toughed Verdejo. More physical, better chin, better conditioning, greater will was the difference. Sensational comeback, and give all credit to Nakatani, but you also have to say when it comes to Felix Verdejo, this is a crossroads for him. He has to look in the mirror now and really assess, does he want to do this? Because this was a devastating loss, and the manner that he lost, it's going to be extremely hard to come back from.
The technical specific description for Nakatani, you can look it up. Tough bastard. Tough little. He wanted it more. He gave himself the chance he needed to win because he stayed in the fight. There were multiple moments, especially fairly early, where he could have folded. Verdejo did tag him, did drop him. He just simply refused to stop. His injuries were not bad enough for the referee or the ringside physician to stop it. He carried on, and he just kept himself in the fight. And when you're the opponent who's put somebody down on his backside a few times and then he keeps getting up, it's dispiriting. You know, you do start thinking, what the hell is it going to take for me to stop this guy? And Verdejo lost his will. He just lost it, especially when Nakatani started delivering the same amount of hurt to him. And the difference was, you know, they both did their damage on each other, but Verdejo folded. Verdejo folded. He has simply never been the same since his motorcycle accident in Puerto Rico. You know, a lot of the promise he showed early on has just sort of fizzled. And this was really his last chance. And you're right, Michael. At the beginning of the fight, he looked good. And for a moment, we thought, this is the Felix Verdejo we all thought he was going to be, you know, a decade ago. And he just couldn't hold on to it. And I do think he and his team need to really seriously discuss his future. You know, that was a difficult loss. I mean, Nakatani earned it fair and square. I mean, Verdejo didn't just cave. And he's not that old a fighter. You know, you would think, you know, he's gone some tough rounds, but he is still just 27 years old. But still, he's taken some bad losses. His wins have been, you know, not exceptionally strong. And he really has to decide, how bad do I want this? Am I willing to fight my way back up the ladder? Being a fighter from Puerto Rico, having Top Rank behind him with a lot of potential opponents, if he wants to go back to having, you know, 10-round fights, he can certainly do it, 8 and 10-round fights. But, you know, he's got to really decide where his heart is. As for Nakatani, looking back now at taking Teofimo Lopez 12 rounds and Lopez being criticized for, you know, not being able to get him out of there, you know, now I think we have a newfound respect for how hard a fight that was for Lopez, and Nakatani showing what he could do against a tough opponent like that. He's going to stick it out to the final bell, you know, unless you practically tie him down to the canvas. So, you know, it gives you that retrospective look. Frequently, a fight will do that and give you a different perspective on a previous matchup, where this gives you a lot more intelligence about why it went down that way. So good for Nakatani. Who wouldn't want to see him again? You know, he's a Mexican-style Japanese fighter if I ever saw one. And a lot of them are. If you're not watching the fighters out of Japan, most of them have the same will and heart Nakatani does. And you're really missing out if you don't keep an eye on them. As Michael and the other fans of the lower weight divisions will tell you.
I said I was going to split fights up, but I want everybody's opinion on this fight. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to Intangible Boxing News, Inside the Ropes, who are checking us out live right now on YouTube. If you like what you're hearing, please hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. I'm going to you, Lisa. Your quick comments on this fight between Nakatani and Verdejo. Nakatani, yes, he showed heart. In hindsight, his loss to Teofimo Lopez, it's not that bad, given how much he gave, given how tough he gave Lopez, given how he gave Lopez such a tough fight. When it comes to Verdejo, is it a question of physical in terms of something that he's missing? Is it an intangibles question? Is it a question of he may not have the heart? Because it was surprising, like how suddenly he just quickly fell apart in this fight. And the question's towards you, Lisa, and then you can follow up, Daniel.
Yeah, I agree. I have a newfound respect. I have a newfound respect for Nakatani. The Teofimo fight was a very tough fight. and I didn't realize that I found out that he was in the hospital. He suffered a lot from that fight, like some brain type of trauma or whatever. And you know, so he had been out for a while, and to come back like that and give a performance like that, and I predict my guy Verdejo to win. I was, because after that first round knockout that he had, I was, impressed, but also, I knew somebody had told me about Verdejo years ago. They told me to watch out for this kid, that he was really good. So he was always, you know, somebody that I watched. So Nakatani is tough. And to come back like that was phenomenal. I couldn't even believe it. And I was watching, I was like, what am I watching? That was like the fight of the night, man. That was incredible, that performance. And for him to come back like that, down on the cars, being knocked down and come back, it showed a lot of grit. He dug deep. And I tipped my hat off to him. I heard he had to go to the hospital afterwards. So I'm hoping that both warriors are okay, as I wish for anyone who go in that ring. And and that they, just wow. I was you couldn't if you was here when I was watching, my eyes was like, what am I watching? So it was just an incredible performance. Respect to him.
Quick word from you, Daniel, about this fight.
Yeah, it was I thought of the first round of like that I saw where I figured, okay, Verdejo's going to put everything together now. This is his chance. And then just watch him crumble as the fight went on, and just the way it ended, him falling flat in the face. That fight it's really sad in the way, because I agree. This is the end for any potential that he had of being in the top level of lightweight for the very, very foreseeable future. So he's probably going to have to look to things, because apparently one of the ideas was supposed to be either Puerto Rican Day Parade or later on in the year, him and Teofimo Lopez in New York City and the Garden, which would have been a good Garden fight. You got the Puerto Ricans out for Verdejo. You would have had pretty much all of Brooklyn and a lot of parts of Long Island for Lopez. But that's out of the window now, so you have to look at what you see, what you're going to do. You know you have power. You know you can hit. You know you can hurt people. But you probably can't take the punch of a lightweight. Do you go down to 130? Open yourself up avenues through there to see maybe your power stays and you'll probably do fare better? Or does he decide to either retire or just become the main gatekeeper that you can have a lightweight or top rank, where the top lightweight process come in? Okay, so the guy knows you're ready. You'll fight Felix Verdejo. Is that what is going to be his destiny? Unfortunately, it depends on everything, because I feel bad for the kid. Like, his future looks so bright not too long ago.
I'm going to read a comment here from the chat from Lance Meyer. Thanks. Shout out to Lance for joining us on the show. Let me put it up here for everybody to see. It says Nakatani Verdejo was a hell of a fight. Should be mentioned with the likes of Zepeda, Berchelt this year. I don't know about. It's a good fight. It was a good fight, but Zepeda and Berchelt, that was oh my gosh, that was next level violence. I'm still amazed at what I saw.
Those were actual felonies. Those were actual felonies that happened.
You would get arrested for the punishment they put on each other if that was a street fight between those. If that was a regular, if that wasn't a sanctioned bout between those two, because vicious would be an understatement to describe that because yeah, like I said, you was both enthralled and kind of horrified at the same time watching that fight. So Nakatani and Verdejo was good. I wouldn't put it at yeah, I wouldn't put it as Zepeda Baranchik, but I can understand your feelings of the fight. In terms of what you said, the last thing you said about Verdejo, Daniel, here's my thing. I don't think Verdejo can make 130, and you can't move up to 140 because if you can't take the punch of a lightweight of the guys at lightweight, how is he going to take the punches of a 140 pounder uh, um, like a Rougarou or a Josh Taylor or Ramirez, right? Just no. Um, just no, it's just not going to happen. And it would be sad if he was at basically gatekeeper status because, to Lisa's point, he was being hailed as a future world champion when he first came into the professional ranks, kind of like the next Miguel Cotto, if you will. And to see the way he has regressed, no, I personally do not want to see him in gatekeeper status. I don't like fighters who have this potential and obvious potential, and then they go into the depths like that. It would be best. I like it when fighters don't put themselves in position, right, and say and just rather call it a day because just no, it's pitiful. It's quite frankly pitiful to watch. I'm going to start splitting these fights up. I'm going. How can I put this? I'm going back to you, Lisa, to talk about this next fight. A couple more comments here in the chat in terms of what did he say from Lance. Give me a quick second, folks. He says absolutely right. I'm just saying. Another comment here, Hawker Mustang with the eyes emoji in terms of the comments about, I'm assuming comments about Baranchik and Zepeda. If that's your reaction to that, I agree because that was the reaction of Boxing Twitter who was watching the fight on the night. Going back to you, like Lisa, to talk about one more fight on this Stevenson ESPN card. That's one Edgar Berlanga getting a lot of talk because of he's 16-0. All 16 of his bouts have been by knockout, first round knockout. That streak continued on the undercard of Stevenson Clary with a 1-round stoppage win over a guy by the name of Sierra. Sierra has sparred with the likes of Ward, I believe, sparred with the likes of Canelo. Okay, he got the win, right? And all the talk from the ESPN crew was about his power and all this stuff. Okay, here's the thing. We know he can punch, but my question is, can he really fight? Because there's a difference. When are we going to see this guy in the ring with competition that extends him more than 90 seconds, 2 minutes of a first round?
Yeah, I agree. The young man has a lot of power. I could see them really promoting him and promoting him as this big knockout artist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He has the swag, he has the jewelry and all of that. He can he's a person that would would blend in well with today how the culture is in boxing or with the young people and everything, the knockout artists. But I would like to see he's 168, right?
Yeah, 160, 168 range.
Oh, okay. I would like to see him in there with hey, put him in there with somebody like Chris Eubank. But that may be a step up too much. But put him in there, not even that. Put him in there with a number 15 ranked guy, something like that. With somebody that could give him a little bit more. He needs to go more rounds because he got 16 knockouts all in one round. So he needs to put the rounds in, the hours in. We need to see if we know he can punch. and he has the equalizer, but we need to know if he can box. We need to know how he can get it. If he's in deep waters, what would he do? These type of things. So it's still a question mark right now, but I think if they put him in there with or even a top gatekeeper, but it's got to be somebody, maybe that.
Someone like a Truax, someone like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Or what about the Durrell, one of him, the Durrell brother? That may be too much right now. But see, he has that power there. He's like past his prime. So yeah, Truax, that's a good, yeah. No, but he's got to get in there with somebody to really test him, and that's how we can gauge where he's at.
Let's move on to one more fight, and I'll go to you. Gayle. If you saw, I don't know if you saw the fight. I wasn't able to see it because I was covering other action for Three Kings Boxing. Chris Colbert, who has a version of a quote unquote world title at 130 pounds. I think he is WBA interim super featherweight champion. When he fought, what's his name? Arroyo, I believe. I wasn't that impressed, right? From all indications, he fought a guy by the name of Jaimie Aroboleda, stopped him in the 11th rounds. From what I've read, Gayle, he looked very good in this bout. From the time that you saw him like a year or so ago, has there been a significant level of improvement, Gayle? And I'll go to, if you didn't see the fight, Daniel.
I did see the fight, multitasking. That's where picture in picture comes in. Damn handy. That's all I'll have to say. This was definitely a graduation for Colbert. Let's face it, this card on Saturday, it might have been billed as Showtime Championship Boxing, but this was a Saturday night edition of Showbox, everybody. I mean, these were, the prospects, the level of talent we're used to seeing on Showbox. And that is not a criticism of anybody. It's just the level of competition that we were looking at was on a Friday. Colbert was flashy. Arboleda was no pushover. He's ranked number 4 by the BA. And he caught him with a vicious left hook, early, in the 9th round. Now, Arboleda survived that one, but he didn't survive very long. Colbert made it stick, knocking him down again 2 more times in the 11th round. And Steve Willis finally stepped in and stopped the fight, and it was absolutely the right thing to do. It was an absolute shutout all the way. Colbert was dominant. He said that he gave him the 2 rounds after he knocked him down in the 9th. I'm not sure we can buy that exactly, but he said later after the fight he wanted to prove he could stand in there and hang and bang. Well, he did. And every single judge agreed all the way down the scorecard at the time of the stoppage, which was virtually the whole fight. Every single one of them had him ahead 98-90. So it was a great performance. That was actually Colbert's debut on Showtime in a main event. So that's a terrific appearance for him. He seems very legit. He's not been known as the knockout artist. That's the interesting thing. He's undefeated in 15 fights, but he only has 6 knockouts. So Arboleda is not a pushover. I don't want to write it off as easy competition or a gimme fight in that debut. But boy, he is doing something different in training. He's found a new gear. Something's working for him. He's always had very fast hands. That's a tremendous asset for him. That would stand him up well, even lacking a little power. His speed is that good that he'd be competitive at 130, even against some of the bigger names, I think. Much above that, I think he needs to make weight at 130 as long as he can. And he's only 24, so he's got plenty of time. But it was a really good performance. It really went under the radar this weekend, given all the attention on Joshua and the competition with the card on Top Rank. But next time, Showtime needs to give him an evening and a little more attention where he's not in so much competition. I think fans will like him. He's a real charismatic kid. He's flashy. He had all sorts of social justice messages on his trunk. He was promoting an anti-breast cancer or anti-cancer message, and he even dyed his hair breast cancer pink to go with his trunks. So good for him. In fact, if he keeps doing that, and there's ever a boring round in the fight, well, hell, you could just read all the stuff that's on his trunks, because there was a lot there to take in. So there was a lot to like. It was a good performance for him. Seen, unfortunately, I don't think by very many people.
Yeah, I mentioned him. I said when he fought Arroyo, Colbert. I misspoke. When he fought Jezreel Corrales earlier this year, in January this year, he won. He won by wide margin on the scorecards. But I was watching the fight, and I was like, yeah. Same thing when I saw him footage of him against Alberto Mercado, and I was like, yeah. But from all indications I read, he looked very, very good against Aroboleda, and let's see where he goes. At 130 pounds, I agree with you, Gayle. I think he should stay at that weight for a while, and there's fights there. Potential match I would like to see, possibly him against Jojo Diaz in the unification bout. Good fight for both guys, but again, we'll see where he goes. Let's move on. Well, I'll just leave the floor open for anybody who want to talk about any other news, any news developments. I mentioned earlier that Berchelt and Valdez, they're going to fight on February 20th. That's the main thing I've seen so far. If you have any other news developments, Daniel, Gayle, Lisa, the floor is yours.
I think that gives you all you need to know. Let's move the train down the track.
Yeah, the only thing that was semi-major was just the Povetkin White fight is going to be delayed again because Povetkin's recovering from COVID.
And the situation out there with Nonito Donaire. I wrote this up again for Three Kings Box on threekingsboxing.com. Donaire, for a lot of folks, he was originally set to fight O'Bali for the WBC bantamweight title at 118 pounds. O'Bali had to bow out because he tested positive for COVID. Donaire was then going to fight a former IBF champion, Emmanuel Rodriguez, for that WBC title. But on the 4th, December 4th, I believe it was, Donaire tested positive for COVID-19. Well, on Friday or Saturday, I want to say Friday, he gave evidence that the test was a false positive because he took follow-up tests after the doctors that gave him the initial positive test. Him and his wife couldn't get a response from them, any follow-up for them. So he paid out of pocket to get further testing on his own. And that further testing showed him to be negative. He says he's fine. He says all follow-up tests, including a COVID-19 test on December 10th and the 11th, have showed him to be negative. He argues that it's a false positive. The initial positive test was indeed a false positive. And he feels fit and fine, and he's ready to go. What does it say to you guys about the fact that in this era of boxing and in the era of COVID-19, that this is kind of the unfortunate thing that we're going to have to deal with? People testing positive, people testing, coming up with false positives and whatnot. and leaving boxers and even events in a state of flux. Um, is this the new norm now?
It's been the norm for months. The pandemic gets a say in our lives right now. I imagine, however, as the vaccine rolls out, that among the earlier recipients of the vaccine will be professional athletes. There's too much money riding on them not to. So I do think this problem will start solving itself. But listen, this is just what we've needed to deal with for months. It's no surprise. It's part of the reason we have an understudy standing by for the Canelo versus Callum Smith fight. In case one of them pops, we've got somebody on the undercard of the Golovkin Szeremeta fight ready to go. Just like we had Gabe Rosado standing ready to go against Danny Jacobs here a while back. So that's the smart thing. Promoters need to do it. But with high-level fights like Donaire and O'Malley with straps involved, you can't just throw in another opponent at the last minute, or even somebody that you got on standby. It's tougher to find somebody willing to do that. So, it's a state of sports today. We really do need to remind ourselves how fortunate we are to be enjoying our sport fairly unencumbered, longer than most people whose favorite sports are just, flattened, a shadow of their former selves, or not taking place at all.
Quick word on this, Lisa and Daniel.
Yeah. Yes, it's just kind of. I don't even know what to say. So many athletes have tested. Boxers. What we're talking about, boxing. Have tested for this unfortunate. You know. Illness, and it's just really sad. Like you said, is this going to be the new norm? It's just like, I don't know, man. It's just very disheartening. And Gail, you made a good point about these professional athletes will probably be one of the first ones that they test, because a lot of money is on the line. You're talking about, we had the Olympics was postponed until further notice, and that's a huge event. You're talking about the Super Bowl is getting ready. I don't even know if they're gonna have a Super Bowl. So these major sporting events.
Hell yes, they will have a Super Bowl. Yeah, there's nothing that will stop a Super Bowl. Too much money.
Wow.
Too much money.
Yeah, just like they having college football this year because of the money. No, Super Bowl is gonna happen.
Yeah.
Just like the NFL is happening right now because of the money. So that's not gonna get stopped. COVID, coronavirus, be damned.
Yeah, but look at of course these stadiums are big enough to social distance, but when I look at countries like Australia right now, they're having major sporting events, but like I'm looking at what they did, like they shut their borders down, they shut everything down. So here in the US we had the same thing, but everything is about money. I get it, but at the same time, sometimes you gotta I know we were shut down, don't get me wrong. Listen, I know we were shut down. Everybody it was just crazy, and Top Rank came back with boxing. I remember when they came back, because it was a drought out here. We weren't getting anything. And we were happy for those cards, So it's just like, I just want things to change, and so we can move forward. But I have to be realistic.
I'm going to not ask. I'm not going to have Daniel respond, because I want him to respond to a question from Lance Meyer in the chat. Asked about a young prospect, welterweight prospect. I believe he is. Let me check he's a welterweight prospect. Guy by the name of Elementus Staniosis. We haven't talked much about him on the show. Lance asked about him in his fight against a guy by the name of Gonzalez, Gonzalez. They're going to fight on the 16th in LA. I've seen him fight. I saw Stanios's his last fight against Justin DeLoach, ninth round stoppage on PBC. Stanios's skill very strong. If physique is a look alone, he has the look of a very very promising guy. I think he can do a little. He's a very good pressure fighter, but I think he has boxing skills too. He trains out of Oxnard, California, originally from Lithuania. I think he's 25, 26 at this point. 11-0. I want to say 8 KOs. If you've seen him fight, Daniel, and by the way, in terms of the fight against Gonzalez, he's going to beat him. He's going to knock him out. I believe he's going to stop him. Gonzalez, he lost to Jamal James a few fights back. Knocked Jamal James. I believe he got knocked down against Jamal James, but still, yeah, I think he got knocked down against Jamal James in the 6th round. But still, I think Stanios is going to win and win rather easily. So respond to the question in the chat, please.
He is going to be a pretty interesting prospect. And it's another bullet in the chamber that PBC has at welterweight. And he's now another one of these guys coming in from Eastern Europe that's decided to make Southern California his home, and he's starting to learn how to fight when it comes to what we dubbed it Mexican style, and mix it in with someone like the amateur style of Eastern Europe. So he's going to be very, very interesting to watch. I wouldn't probably say have him anywhere near the discussion as far as the upper echelon when it comes to welterweight. Not until at least 2023. You still got to give him a little bit of time, and because, like I said, how loaded the PBC is at welterweight, he doesn't really have to. You don't really have to rush him into it because there's still a lot of top caliber guys, and ultimately, like he could probably come up with when Pacquiao announces his presidential run in next. What you could pretty much just say almost at this point next year, 2022. So he's a very interesting prospect, really good prospect, good pressure fighter, but it's learning how to box really well, and he's going to be a kid to look out for. He does remind me a bit, as far as like there's a tenacity of a fighter that I had as prospect of the year a few years back in Munguia. The main difference is that he can actually learn defense. Munguia, he is what he is at this point, unfortunately.
Let's move on and start previewing some of these fights that's going to happen this coming weekend, this Friday and Saturday, to be specific. I'm going to you, Gayle, a guy who's kind of been forgotten in 2020. That's one Gennady Golovkin. He finally makes his long-awaited return to the ring on this coming Friday. This show is being recorded on December 14th. He's going to fight on the 18th in Hollywood, Florida, on this headlining a card on the Zone. Going to fight Kamil Szeremeta. Correct me if I'm wrong, Gayle, but this is going to be a mandatory title defense of the IBF middleweight strap. Golovkin had his troubles last time out. A lot of people felt he lost his last bout. Given that backdrop, given the long layoff, your thoughts on his upcoming fight against Szeremeta? I personally think that Szeremeta is not on the level of Triple G's last opponent. Not as good as a boxer, nor does he have the power. And I think Golovkin, in spite of the age, in spite of the inactivity, I think he will have enough to not just win, but stop this guy. I would say between 6 and 8.
Yeah, I agree. We had an opportunity to talk with Golovkin and Szeremeta today on a media call. along with Eddie Hearn and various other players on the card. Golovkin looked good. From what you can tell on a Zoom call and by somebody's demeanor, he seemed his old self, if you will. He's gone through some sort of dark times. The Canelo series roughed him up both physically and psychologically, I think. Some of the business backside of boxing he's found very ugly. But the break seems to have done him a bit of good. He was in good spirits. He answered questions quite freely, although he does answer them translated in Russian. He certainly is conversant in English. He responds to everybody, but he wants to be more precise in what he's saying, so he does insist on answering in Russian. But he says this fight is important to him because this would be a division record 21st successful title defense. So on the books, this puts it into middleweight division history. So that marker seems to be very motivating to him. It has great meaning to him. So I think he'll chase it pretty hard. And I asked him, given his performance against Derevyanchenko, does he feel the need to make sure he pulls out a strong performance this time? Of course he's going to say yes. And Szeremeta is the perfect opponent for this. You're right, Michael. Doesn't particularly have a lot of power. He has no one on his resume at this level. He's not particularly a threat. I don't know if it'll be a Steve Rolls or fight, or Willie Monroe fight even. We'll see. But it'll give his fans something to watch. It'll allow him to prove something to himself, which he needs to do before he moves forward against any other more difficult opponents. And the record in itself will be the kind of achievement that, as he's thinking about legacy and Hall of Fame status, it certainly will help him quite a bit. Now, what's interesting is that also on the call, the media were told in no uncertain terms, strongly, before it even started, that Golovkin would answer no questions about Canelo Alvarez, and if anybody tried to ask a question about Canelo Alvarez to Golovkin, they would be muted and thrown off the call. So that didn't happen. But I'll tell you what did happen. With Eddie Hearn on the call, there was discussion about, well, how about Demetrius Andrade? And they didn't say no. They did not say no. That'd be very interesting. So we'll see what happens after this fight. But it gets Golovkin on the calendar, at least for 2020. That is important. And he has been put on Friday night because on Saturday night, the boxing world's big cash cow is performing. So at least they did not make them compete against each other or do a odd sort of a doubleheader. The Golovkin-headed card is in Florida, and then the card the next night with Alvarez is in Texas. So
Indeed, let's move on to that.
But I think he'll do fine. I think he'll bounce back. There were a lot of questions about his fitness. He's had a couple of poor performances that did seem to be chalked up to either illness or some other kind of malaise going on with him. So we'll see how he does. But I expect a Steve Rolls type fight on Friday.
Yeah, the last two fights with the Rolls fight, 2 fights back against Steve Rolls. He got touched in that first 2 rounds before he finally woke up and finished Rolls off in 4. And then his last fight against Derevyanchenko in October of last year, again, he struggled mightily, and I felt that Derevyanchenko beat him that night. And so he not only needs to win, he needs to win impressively to get the stain, particularly the Derevyanchenko fight, out of get that extra out of folks' memories. And what's next for him? Sure that he would love a 3rd fight with Canelo. And I see Gayle, she's had to dip out. For those who want to talk boxing, want to talk media because she does teach media on the side. Gayle, she had to leave early. You can check her out or check out, or check her out on a bi-weekly basis. I believe you can see her on TMZ at least twice a month. Um, Follow her on Twitter at PR Pro San Diego. Again, you can check out her boxing work over at Communities Digital News. That's COMM Digi News.com. I'll go to you, Lisa and Daniel. Your thoughts on Golovkin and his upcoming fight against Szeremeta, excuse me.
He should be able to uh like a Steve Rose type of thing, get that guy up out of there quick. But I have a question. Gayle had to leave, but she said that this would be his 21st title defense. I'm a little confused because I thought once you lose, your title reign ends, and if you
What
if you win another belt, you start another reign. I
what
thought
she
it was
means is
huh?
what she's referring to is 21 combined title defenses, uh, 20 defenses of the previous title he held, and if he gets this will be the first defense of the IBF title. Put that together, that's 21 combined title defenses, which would be, if you want to count that as a record, okay, surpasses Bernard Hopkins, who totaled 20 overall defenses of the IBF middleweight title. Uh, Golovkin, with his two combined reigns, if you will, um, that would equal 21. So that's what she's referring to, the combination of title defenses.
Right. See, I didn't know they did it like that. I thought it would be a
It's
separate
a
reign.
it's a number that's put out there, I guess, for history's sake. The problem is that most boxing heads are not, they take that kind of stuff with a grain of salt.
Right. Okay, so he should be able to you know, I say in under 6 rounds.
And a comment from Lance Meyer before we go to Daniel. Um, about Andrade. In our discussion about Triple G, somebody's got to fight Andrade. The question is, who do Andrade want to fight? There are fights out there for him, but he's not taking them. So, and that's on him, large part. Sure, there are fighters avoiding him, but he's not doing a good job of himself of putting his name out there, putting himself in a position to get the fights that he desires. So, uh, he has to look at him in the mirror and assess himself and what he's doing and what he's not doing. So some of that falls on him as well. Respectfully, Lance. I go to you, Daniel. Triple G, his upcoming fight. What you think?
It should be a Steve Rose performance. This is lined up to get him back in the picture, back in the spotlight. So this should be a fight that should be a Steve Rose kind of fight. But we have to look at his last 3 fights. Tie against Canelo, a fight where a lot of people thought he won. Lost to Canelo in a fight where probably not as big of an amount, but some amount of people thought it would have been a draw. And then you had the fight Derevchenko, which you technically won, but a lot of people feel that you lost. So it's an interesting situation how that takes impact when it comes to physically and mentally, because unfortunately, as far as where he is in his prime, we know if Golovkin does have some, it's not going to be a lot left, unfortunately. So this should be an easy fight to make. It does leave the window open for a Canelo fight, although we have to see how that goes, because I think those two now at this stage not only have a business disdain, but an actual personal disdain towards each other. Andrade might be the one that could really put the spotlight in there. And then, like I said, unfortunately, answer the question of like the person's comment of if he only wasn't able just to sabotage himself. in almost every instance when he is lined up to make that big step, something happens, and it isn't a situation like, oh, pass for drug tests, or oh, there's an injury. No, it's something that can be easily resolved in the business end that ultimately ends in the fight. Like, it all starts to listening to Jay-Z when it came to the Charlo fight, and that blew up in his face. So hopefully that goes into it, and hopefully Golovkin does show that he has a little bit into it, because if he does it, then it's going to feel really bad watching somebody go, like I said, fade in real time when we know we never really saw him in his prime, at least here in the West.
One more fight I want to well, we can talk about this fight. I'll go back to you, Daniel. Also on the same night as Golovkin, his mandatory defense, he got former champion Zurdo Ramirez fighting Alfonso Lopez on a place called Fight TV in Galveston, Texas. It's not even a question about the fight itself, Daniel, but this is about Ramirez, the person, the fighter, because the depths that he has fallen to. This guy's a former champion, Daniel. A former champion, undefeated guy. Yet here he is fighting basically a blown up welterweight on a network that's hard to find. How far has this dude fallen?
Well, first, like Fight TV. Fight TV is the main pay-per-view channel you want to go to if you are a wrestling promotion. So it's a lot of times where you'll find either New Japan, Ring of Honor at this point, but things are starting. Those can change a little bit in the future with how Fight TV wants to delve into. But the thing, unfortunately, with Zurdo Ramirez, it's a tale of two or three different things. Number one, he never looked as good as he did when he beat Arthur Abraham for that WBO super middleweight title. And the way he looked in his all the fights that happened afterwards, unfortunately, gave you a little bit, fed you into the notion that it wasn't the fact that Zurdo stepped up and beat Arthur Abraham, he just beat an old Arthur Abraham. So you have that going forward. You had the situation, unfortunately, business-wise, where he felt that he could have been the next Canelo, because the guy has a charisma. He has a look. He does carry himself a little bit like a vaquero. And you figure that Top Rank would capitalize that, but Top Rank has a lot of other fighters at that time that were more valuable to them in another division, particularly in a division that is dominated for the most part by Al Heyman, again, super middleweight. And it looked like for a while that was probably happened to Zurdo, that somebody in Heyman's circle got into his ear, spoken to it. It looked like he was going to be fully Heymanized. And then he decided, I think, to go to light heavyweight. And once you put yourself out in an area where you burned your bridge with Bob, and you don't have any real allies on the zone that could make you a fight at light heavyweight, which at this you haven't proved yourself really light heavyweight, you get into a situation like this. Like the only thing probably is to his betterment is the fact that he is actually, this is his own promotion. This is him going out there as a businessman and handling it on his own. Should have gotten to this point? No. Personally, I'd say he could have maneuvered still well with Top Rank, probably would have gotten some fights. Yep. Yes, Fight TV. Yes, Fight TV, which is, by the way, it's spelled out FITE, I think. I don't know why they spelled like that. Probably a copyright issue. Yes. They do, because Fight TV is, I think, one of the networks that aired the Jones fight. Fight TV, like I said, they focuses a lot more when it comes to MMA, when it comes to wrestling. They don't really get into boxing as much, unless it's like a special, unless it's like occasion, something like this, where it's more of a showcase, not an actual serious fight into it. Because when it comes to Fight TV, you're putting a lot of money into your own thing. It's not like the network is they themselves bidding into it. You're going to Fight TV saying like, no, we're gonna, hey, we want to put this on, and then you got to pay whatever fee you got to pay to get into it. That's why it's mostly been MMA, and it's mostly been wrestling that has been on Fight TV. But I do feel bad for Zerto, because he's a light heavyweight right when the division is popping off, but he unfortunately he outmaneuvered himself in the business sense, and it has cost him, because right now at this stage, you can say that the next Canelo is a long way away from what he wanted to be.
Very, very, very long way. And for those who are not who those for those who are checking this out on places other than YouTube, what Daniel's referring to is Fight TV is a comment I'm sharing here on live on YouTube from Lance Meyer, who says, "I think Fight TV works with Trill Entertainment and help with the Tyson Jones fight. Not sure where they stand with the future of boxing." Um, he asks, "Does so is Ramirez on Fight TV due to the virus?" No, I don't think so. I think it's because he didn't have any other options, because he has no pull right now, being a free agent. He's not with Aram. He's not with Matchroom. He's not with PBC. He's not even with a Warren, a Frank Warren right now over in the UK. Uh, when you are independent and you don't have any options and you hadn't built no cachet, Fight TV is what you get at this point. So it's not because of the pandemic per se. I would just argue that he has little options on the table. Fight TV presented him with an option, and he ain't got no much of a choice but to take it if he wants to carry on with his career and make a little bit of money. So it just is what it is with him, unfortunately. Let's move on to the big fight here. Going to start the conversation now with you, Lisa, and that is the return of Canelo Alvarez, as he's going to fight Callum Smith at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. We all could know Canelo is a cash cow. He makes more money than anyone. We all know of the upheaval that he had with Golden Boy and Matchroom. Earlier this year, he left Golden Boy. He's still with Matchroom. He's his own promoter right now. But at the end of the day, he's still a fighter, and he's still a hell of a fighter, right? And one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world. Some would argue that he's number one. He's fighting a Callum Smith, who is a champion, WBA champion at 168 pounds, right? And the thing is with Callum, what Callum Smith are we going to see? Are we going to see the Callum Smith that showed up to the ring against John Ryder that quite honestly didn't look very well? Or are we going to see the Callum Smith that destroyed George Groves and Hassan Endom in his previous two bouts? If that version, if the Smith that we saw against Groves and Endom shows up, he has a chance to win. If the fight against John Ryder, if the fighter that showed up against John Ryder, we see that him in the ring against Canelo, I don't care how long Canelo's been off, Canelo would have Callum Smith for food. Given that backdrop and that context, Lisa, what do you see happening? What scenarios do you see playing out in this fight between Smith and Canelo?
Well, from what I've been hearing, that he's always been in the sweepstakes, so I'm sure that he's been training for a long time, and it's been setbacks, of course, due to the pandemic and everything. But I think he's gonna show up. Do I think he's gonna win? Do I think he's gonna win? No, but I think he's gonna show up. This is his time to shine. So why not give it his all? He has uh he definitely is long and tall, so he can work off the jab. But I just think that Canelo's too advanced and skilled, and he definitely can get low and work on the body, and you know, create a lot of problems for him. But and also remember, maybe his brother could give him some some pointers, because his brother fought Canelo. But I still don't think that I mean, he could give him some pointers. However, I still have Canelo for the win, but I think he's gonna come in there. This is a chance of a lifetime, for him, and why not show up? Don't come up and stink the place out. Why not? He showed up. He showed up at the WBS. He showed up at last minute and made made something out of it. So why not?
You speak of his brother. I believe you're referring to Liam Smith,
Yeah.
who fought Canelo and who lost to Canelo in 2016. I'll go to you, Daniel. The thing that Callum Smith has going for him is his height, and reach, and the jab. Right? He's what, 6'2", in around there, and when the jab is popping and it's really really good, right? And he's a guy who can box, and he can punch a bit for his size, but again, he can be hit or miss. And at age 30, given his height, I want to say he's closer to 6'3" at this point. Uh, he may have some weight issues heading into this fight. How quickly this matchup was made. Do you think the issue of weight, because he's a big guy at 168 pounds, Smith? Do you think that he could be, given his qualities? Do you think he could become a weakened fighter? Given he's probably going to have to lose a lot of pounds in order to make this fight happen, lose a lot of pounds in a short period of time.
Oh yeah. See, I didn't even factor that into the equation. See, I always thought that he was a person that was in the sweepstakes. They never made their decision. It was always like they talked about Callum. They talked about Billy Joe. It was also Plant was thrown in there. So I just, in my mind, I thought that he was just training anyway, just in case he get the call. But that's just how my mind was thinking.
Your thoughts on this, Daniel?
Yeah, well, you mentioned the Smith family, and like I said, when it comes to the Smith family, like Liam was the most well-rounded into it at the stage of his career. Steve was the toughest, but Callum was the one with the most potential. And this is about the time he really starts to show the potential outside of what you had to face in the World Boxing Super Series on it. It's been an interesting fight because he has, like I said, he has a height, he has a little bit of power, but the thing when it comes to fighting somebody like Canelo is that Canelo hasn't been sitting on his laurels or just relaxing beaches and Cabo the whole time. He's been training pretty much throughout, because he thought he was going to have a fight much, much earlier this year. And if he's been training throughout, he has been then preparing for anything that comes in his way. And that's what's going to show up probably in this fight, is the fact that for as tall as, fortunately, Callum is, in this case, he has to punch down. And that gives a guy who, we have to mention, every single time there's a combination, there's a body punch somewhere in Canelo, gives him plenty of room to do so. to provide body shots and to start breaking him down. And we'll put it like this: yes, it's not the full blown Alamo Dome. We know it's not going to be that gigantic crowd, but when it comes to being on American shores, especially Texas, who, like I said, they showed out as much as they could for Errol Spence in that fight with Garcia. They, like I said, it's going to be the first time that Callum's been at this level with somebody of Canelo's caliber. We can talk, what I said about the World Boxing Super Series, about what it meant, but let's face facts. Like Saudi Arabia, you knew what you were getting into when it came to fighting Saudi Arabia. It isn't the gigantic crowds, the atmosphere into it, but it's going to be probably an interesting tell. It'll probably be a tough, like, first 4 or 5 rounds in trying to get adjusted to his size. But I see Canelo probably winning late, probably winning on points.
Daniel says he sees Canelo winning late or winning on points. What's your official prediction, Lisa?
I see Canelo winning from maybe 9th round, TKO, KO.
You say
Or
ninth round.
a devastating body shot, because the guy has a lot of torso. He's long. So you got all of that stomach there, long, torso. I just see,
In
and
other
he's
words, he's
gonna
long. In other words, he's long waisted.
yes, and I just see him. He's gonna piece his body up. That's what I see. But he pieces everybody's body up.
I think Smith has a chance to get off to a good start, but just over time, Canelo is patient. Canelo is a hard hitter. Canelo's, as to Lisa's point, he likes to dig the body, and I think the power will get to Smith eventually over time. I don't know if he'll stop Smith, but I think he'll win by decision. And one final question before we begin to shut things down here. From Lance, he says, "Don't you feel a fight with Joe Smith Jr. would be beneficial for all parties? If there isn't a fan base, you create it. If there's a problem, you fix it." Your reaction to Lance's point about the possibility of Joe Smith? I don't see it at this point because of promotional red tape. Um, and besides, a fight against Joe Smith Jr. would be at light heavyweight if Canelo would win. I don't know if he's going to move back up to light heavyweight. I think he'll stay down in that super middleweight area. Excuse me. And even if Smith wins, I just don't see him fighting a Joe Smith Jr. Unless, correct me if I'm wrong, unless you're talking about our previous discussion, Lance, about Zerto Ramirez. Please clarify. Let me, before we go on, please clarify. Are you talking about the winner? Are you talking about the Canelo and Callum Smith? Or are you talking about Zerto Ramirez? Please clarify. As we get ready to go around the panel and shut things down. And until I want you to clarify first, but while you do that, I'm going to go around the panel here. I mentioned whatever contact Gayle to talk about boxing and whatnot. I go to you, Lisa, for those who want to talk the sweet science, or for those who want to check out the prediction league that you're a part of, because you do predict fights or whatever. You are in a boxing league. Let the folks know where they can find that and where to find that in terms of being a fellow participant in that boxing league.
Yes, it's on Facebook, Fantasy Boxing League. Um, it's Champ Ross. It's his league, and there's a lot of great people in the league. A lot of people doing, even some people in the business, and then some weeks there's cash prizes, and so it's a lot of fun. The season is about to end. This is the 6th season, and it's a lot of fun, and you know sometimes you don't always pick the right method or whatever. But it's just a lot of fun. I enjoy it, a lot of camaraderie, and it's really cool. And I'm here on YouTube. I don't create content right now or anything, but I'm on YouTube. I'm on the in the lives at times, and try to support the channels, and when I can, and I'm just a boxing nerd. And that's it.
Uh, Lance indeed clarified. I'll get you to answer the question right quick, Daniel. He was talking about Zerda Ramirez. So, his point is a fight was between Ramirez and Joe Smith Jr. Uh, power punching like heavyweight down the road. Could that happen? Smith is affiliated with what promotional company, Daniel?
His main promoter is Star Boxing. Star Boxing out here and in the Northeast Mid Atlantic area. Like I said, they mainly do Long Island, Connecticut, in the city. But the tricky part when it comes to Joe Smith is they decided to get cozy with Bob. So if you start getting it, now you bring up an issue where you have Zerdo more or less dealing in some way, shape, or form with Bob. So if it has to be Joe Smith Jr., you're gonna look at probably another fight TV deal, something where Joe Smith is not gonna involve Top Ranking.
Okay, cool. Thanks for answering his question. And for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk the NBA as the season get ready to pick up, I think in the next week or so, particularly when it comes to your Miami Heat, for those who want to check you out, Counterpunch Fools on Twitter, who say something stupid, let the folks know where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter, Rockets99, RAWKUZ99. Definitely said checking in because the year is finally over, and hopefully 2021 does not look as weird as this one did.
Oh, weird is an understatement to put this year, both in and outside the ring. As I said earlier, if you want to reach out to Gail to talk boxing, to talk media, or just find out when the next time she's on TMZ, you can check her out on Twitter, at PR Pro San Diego. You can also check out her writings in terms of the sweet science on Communities Digital News. That's COMMDIGI News .com. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk music and fitness with me, you know what it is. Brother JR at Brother JR76, as I said earlier on the show. If you want to find out if you want to find out where to find Pound for Pound Box Report all over social media and all over all podcast platforms, the blog page is the place to go to for the time being. Excuse me, p4pboxreport.wordpress.com. You can also find out where you can donate. Got a Cash Me and PayPal donation link. Or if you're checking us out live on YouTube or on delayed basis on YouTube, you just hit the description stuff below. You'll find the links to the Cash Me and PayPal donation links. Let donation be the next best nation. I don't care if it's $1, $2, $5. Again, publicly. I want to thank Lisa for her donation that she submitted, that she gave about a month or so ago. That's greatly appreciated. And also, last but certainly not least, if you want, with this to be in the holiday season and you're stuffing your face with holiday food, you may gain a pound or two. If you're interested in keeping yourself in shape, or you want to get yourself in shape as we embark on 2021, just within a couple of weeks, check out my online coaching page. I am an online coach, online a health and wellness fitness coach for Beachbody. If you're interested in many of the programs on Beachbody On Demand, be it 6 weeks of the work, be it MFB, MBF, excuse me, um, be it Shift Shop, be it Lift 4, be it the boxing based program on Beachbody On Demand, 10 rounds bar blend for the ladies, especially they love that. Um, or even the old school P90X and P90X series or the Insanity series and whatnot. Got programs that will meet all your wants and needs just check out Beachbody On Demand. Or if you're interested in getting 2 weeks worth of free workouts to either to end the year or to open up 2021, Beachbody On Demand offer a 2-week trial period that runs throughout the year, and they got some special deals still going on, given that we're in the era of COVID and still a lot of gyms are not opening or they're closing once again because it's getting serious out here, y'all. The numbers are rising in terms of COVID-19 here in the United States. So a lot of gyms are unfortunately shutting back down. So yeah, check out my online coaching page on Beachbody on Pound for Pound Box Report blog page, and I'm saying it right now. I'm speaking it into existence. I will have Daniel on a group fitness challenge to start 2021. I'm going to make it a variety challenge where whatever program you want to try out on Beachbody On Demand to start out the year, whatever program you want to get yourself into, I'm going to speak that into existence. I'm going to get Daniel to get into the 10 rounds program because I think it's right up his alley. Boxing based program based on boxing cardio moves as well as weightlifting. 3 days of cardio, 2 days of resistance work. On the next episode of Pound for Pound Boxing Report, we will do a recap of Canelo and Callum Smith. We will do a recap of Gennady Golovkin in his fight against Szeremeta. We'll also mention some other fights in the interim. Uh, um, Marodi Mothalani, he's going to defend his IBF flyweight title on the 20th. A couple other fights that I'm omitting right now. We will probably talk about as well on the next episode. I don't know if we will do an episode next week because that next week is Christmas week. And yeah, I'll talk to the crew. I'll talk to Daniel. I'll talk to Gayle. I'll talk to Lisa and see what they want to do. So I don't know if we'll do a show next week. If we do a show in 2 weeks, we'll not only talk Canelo and Smith, we'll not only talk Triple G and Muthalani, but if we hold off and do a show in 2 weeks, we will make sure to talk about the fight to end the year. Fight I'm very excited about and Daniel, you excited about as well, between Ioka and Tanaka, down at 115 pounds in Tokyo. We'll let folks know, and I will mention it. I'll make sure to mention word on Pound for Pound Box Report. A Twitter page for sure when our next episode will be. So I want to thank everybody who joined us in the chat. Lance and his comments and questions. I want to thank Hawker Mustang for his comments earlier in the show. Inside the Ropes, Intangible Boxing News. For Gayle, who joined us earlier in the show, Gayle from Community Studio News. For Daniel from the Inscriber, for forever friend and follower of Pound for Pound Box Report, Lisa. I'm your host, Michael. This has been episode 310 of Pound for Pound Box Report. Everybody have a good evening and good night. If we don't have a show next week, I want to send everybody a early Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Most definitely. Good night, everyone.
And the early Feliz Navidad, folks.
Yes, Feliz Navidad.
Night, folks.
Good night.
If we don't see you in 2 weeks, the next time we see you in 2021, keep this in mind. Wear your damn mask. Episode 310 Report. We'll see you next time.